You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Bills Patriots. You have no idea how happy I was to see the Patriots get destroyed like they were yesterday. In a season where the Jets have done nothing outside of the last couple weeks, me finding joy in football has really come down to seeing the teams that I hate lose. The Patriots and Giants have done that. And the Patriots didn't just lose, they got manhandled. They got shredded. They got eviscerated. Whatever word you want to use. I've seen the Jets lose embarrassingly on national television before. The butt fumble game, Jets-Bills in Detroit, Jets-Colts with Mike Pence in attendance. Even last year, Jets-Patriots. It was so nice to see the shoe on the other foot. It was so nice to see the Patriots be the team to get run out of the building. Would it have been better if it was the Jets running them out of the building? Absolutely. But they have a chance to do that on Sunday. Make no mistake about it. The New York Jets have a real chance to win their game against the Patriots on Sunday. The way the Jets are playing and the way the Patriots are playing, it's very possible. I mean, the Patriots just couldn't get anything going offensively. Cam Newton looked lost against this really good Buffalo Bills defense. Here's how bad it was. Newton completed just 50% of his passes for 34 yards. Jarrett Stidham completed just 4 of his 11 passes for 44 yards. The guy completed 1 less pass and he still threw for 10 more yards. You know your time in the NFL is done when you're getting outplayed by Jarrett Stidham. Cam Newton's time as an NFL starter is over. It was a good try by Belichick. It made perfect sense. But the reality is, he's done in the NFL being a starter. He just doesn't have it anymore. This guy has only thrown 5 touchdown passes. He's thrown 10 interceptions. I understand that he has 12 rushing touchdowns. And this is true. No NFL quarterback has more rushing touchdowns than Cam Newton. I understand that. But you're still the quarterback. You've got to be able to throw the ball consistently. Cam Newton has not done that. The guy's only averaging 172.5 passing yards per game. This was the culmination of the death of the dynasty. It's over. The Patriots, once again, are mortal. For the longest time, I've said that the Brady-Belichick relationship was symbiotic. Brady wouldn't be as good without Belichick, and Belichick wouldn't be as good without Brady. This season proves that theory to a T. The Patriots are 6-9. They have clinched their first losing season since 2000. Belichick's first year with the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't even winning their division. They're in the playoffs, but it's as a wild card team. I mean, if you were watching the game yesterday, you saw that Love Actually graphic that ESPN had with Belichick at Brady's door, and it showed the end of the dynasty. Make no mistake about it, it's dead. It's going to take a while for the New England Patriots to get back to the mountaintop. Their offense is inept. Their defense is inept. I understand that they're going up against a great Bills team, but there's no excuse to give up 38 points on Monday Night Football. As great as Stephon Diggs is, there's no excuse for him to have 9 catches for 145 yards and 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen completed 75% of his passes for 320 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Patriots' defense was lifeless. After the Cam Newton rushing touchdown, the score was 10-9 Bills. The Bills then scored 28 unanswered points. The ineptitude is real. There were only 3 good players for the Patriots yesterday. Jacoby Myers, he had 4 catches for 45 yards. James White, he had 3 catches for 23 yards and 4 carries for 14 yards. He wasn't great or anything, but he was solid. And Jonathan Jones, the guy had 7 tackles, he had a forced fumble, he was good. That's it. 3 players for the Patriots were good yesterday. That's it. The writing is on the wall. It's time for the Patriots to tear this thing down and build it back up. I've said this before. The best thing that Robert Kraft can do is say to Bill Belichick, I think it's time for you to move on. You have nothing left to accomplish. I'm not saying you fire him. If Belichick has his heart set on coaching one more year, he doesn't want to go out like this, he wants to give it another go, fine. But in a perfect world, the best thing for the Patriots to do is to convince Belichick to step aside, let him start his waiting period to get into Canton, honor him at Gillette Stadium, retire a number for him, or his initials, whatever. You want to build a statue of him? I don't mind that. But as far as the day-to-day stuff in running the Patriots, you've got to convince him to step aside. Let him stay on as a senior advisor. Let him counsel Kraft on some decisions. But as far as running the Patriots day to day, the best thing to do is to move on from Belichick and give it to someone younger. You have to build this thing back up. The Patriots aren't going to be able to reinvent themselves on the fly and sneak into the playoffs anytime soon. It's going to be a lengthy rebuild. That's not conducive to Belichick. I'm not blaming Belichick for anything that's happened this year. He should be commended for getting this team 6 wins. But the best thing for the Patriots to do is to go in a different direction with someone younger. Let Nick Caserio take over as GM. Let Josh McDaniels take over as head coach. And you build from the ground up. The reality is, the dynasty is dead. It's going to take a while for the Patriots to get to the mountaintop again. It's time to move on. You can't hold on to the glory days if you're Robert Kraft. It was a fantastic run. One of the greatest runs in sports history. But you've got to know when it's time to turn the page. You've got to know when it's time to say, hey, look, this was a great run, but now it's time to move on to the next chapter. You can't hold on to the past if you're the Patriots. You've got to look to the future. You have some very highly regarded people in your organization ready to run things in Nick Caserio and Josh McDaniels. You have coaches that would be willing to go back to the Patriots like that. Matt Patricia, Bill O'Brien. There was a report that came out that said that Adam Gase could become the Patriots' next quarterbacks coach. I have no idea if that's going to happen. If it does, it's absolutely infuriating. But the point is, it's time to move on with a new generation of coaches and executives. That's the best way for the Patriots to get back to the mountaintop. And make no mistake about it, the game yesterday is just as much about the Bills as it is about the Patriots. The Bills are the real deal. They can knock off the Chiefs. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but they certainly have the personnel for it. Josh Allen has turned into one of the best young quarterbacks in the sport. Stephon Diggs is nothing short of incredible. This month, he's caught at least 9 passes in every game. And he has at least 90 receiving yards in every game this month. He is one of the best wide receivers in football. It was a fantastic decision by Brandon Beane to make that trade. He knew Josh Allen needed a true number 1 wide receiver. He couldn't have done any better than Stephon Diggs. You can't overstate Diggs' importance to this fantastic Bills season. Their defense was fantastic. Matt Milano was all over the place making plays. Tre'Davious White had a great game. Jordan Poyer had a great game. The Bills are scary. The way the Chiefs are playing right now, they're vulnerable. It wouldn't surprise me for a second if the Buffalo Bills knocked off the Chiefs and got to the Super Bowl. That's how talented they are. This is a great Bills team. Everyone's been counting him out because no one trusted Josh Allen. No. Josh Allen is proving that he's the real deal. For time immemorial, we're going to look back at the Jets' decision to trade up for Sam Darnold as a cataclysmic mistake. Not just because they took Sam Darnold, but because they could have stayed at 6 and taken Josh Allen. Would Josh Allen have become the quarterback that he became with the Jets? We'll never know for sure, but I'll say this. In an alternate universe out there, somewhere, in the vastness of space, Josh Allen in green is better than Sam Darnold in green. How much better, we'll never know. But he'd be better. There's no question about that. There is one other thing that I have to comment on pertaining to this game. On the pre-show, Booger McFarland made some comments about Dwayne Haskins being released. And I'm not going to say what he said verbatim. I'll just paraphrase it. The point he was trying to make was that young football players today are more concerned with building their brand and their social media following and making a bunch of money than becoming good football players. Unfortunately for Booger, he brought up race. Excluding his comments on race, 100% of the people on this planet could get behind what he said yesterday. But because he brought up race, there's an issue. Now look, I'm not going to comment on the race element of what he said. I'm ill-equipped to comment on that. The one thing I'll say is, just as there are black players that don't work out in the NFL, there are white players that don't work out in the NFL. That's it. That's all I can say about it. That's all I'm qualified to say. But the point that Booger was trying to make, if you boil his statement down to the ground, is correct. There are a lot of young football players that want to come into the NFL immediately, get a bunch of money on their rookie contract, build up their following on Twitter and Instagram, and that's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about putting the work in to become good NFL players. That is true. Why do you think teams care so heavily about draft prospects' characters? It's because they're afraid that they're going to draft someone who doesn't care about football. He's just in it for the fame and fortune. And again, just as there are some black players that fall into that category, there are white players that fall into that category. Again, the gist of what Booger said is true. If you're a young football player trying to make it, whether you're in the NFL or not, you actually need to put the work in. Can you do both? Absolutely. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Aaron Rodgers. But a lot of players, when they get that first endorsement opportunity, the horse blinders come on. That's all I care about. Give me that paycheck. I don't care about anything else. Studying my offense? No. Studying film? No. It's a privilege to play in the NFL. It's not a right. There's a saying, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's the truth. It's okay if you are not the most skilled person in your field, but there's no excuse to not be the hardest worker in your field. If you want to focus all your time on your brand and your social media, you know what? There are 10 other people that would use your roster spot to improve their game. That was the point that Booger was trying to make. And it's correct. But because he brought up race, that message has been lost. I hope that young athletes watch what he said. In all sports, not just the NFL. Baseball players, hockey players, basketball players, soccer players, golf players, lacrosse players, it doesn't matter. You've got to put the work in if you want to be successful. It's not just gonna come to you. I like Booger McFarland. I think he's a very good pre- and post-game analyst. I agree with the gist of what he said. I just wish he hadn't brought race into it. Because what he was trying to say is a point that a lot of people need to hear. Unfortunately, because he brought up race, that's the only thing that people are going to care about. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. And it's back to previewing bowl games. We have 2 bowl games tonight. I'll start with the Cheez-It Bowl between Oklahoma State and the U. I understand that you may not care about the bowl game. You hear the Cheez-It Bowl and you think, oh, forget about it. I'm not going to watch it. But no, this is a great matchup. The Cowboys are the 21st ranked team in the nation, and the Hurricanes are the 18th ranked team in the nation. If this wasn't a bowl game, you'd watch it. It's just that simple. This is a very well-rounded Oklahoma State team. Mike Gundy always has good teams. One of the best coaches in the nation. The guy's been in a bowl game every year since 2006. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. Having said that, though, the one thing that's frustrated me about Oklahoma State all year is their quarterback play. Spencer Sanders just isn't going to get the job done. Watching him play, he just doesn't impress me. The guy's completed 61.8% of his passes for 1,702 yards. He's played 8 games. That's all well and good. But he's only thrown 10 touchdowns. He's thrown 8 interceptions. With the skill position players that the Sooners have, guys like Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace, I understand that Hubbard isn't playing in this game. He had an ankle injury. I don't know if he still has it, but that ankle injury caused him to declare for the NFL draft and forfeit his remaining college eligibility. I don't mind him doing that. He has an injury. Let him prepare for the draft. He'll be a day 2 pick. But the reality is, with Hubbard in the lineup for 7 games, there's no excuse for you to not be 7-0. That's how talented he is. That's how talented Tylan Wallace is. Beat Texas on Halloween. Put up more of a fight in Bedlam. This has been an underwhelming Cowboys team. Tylan Wallace, one of the best wide receivers in the nation, should be playing in a more prestigious bowl game. Are there other players that deserve to be mentioned? Absolutely. Desmond Jackson has done a good job of spelling Hubbard, as has L.D. Brown and Dominic Richardson. And Dylan Stoner's a talented wide receiver, but you watch the Cowboys this year, it's all Hubbard and Wallace. Now, it's just Wallace. And he's going to be limited by Sanders' inefficiency. Defensively, who you should look out for from the Cowboys is Calvin Bundage, one of the most underrated defensive players in the nation. The guy has 7 sacks. Trace Ford, Tyler Lacey, Malcolm Rodriguez, Amen Agbangbamiga, and Brock Martin are all really talented pass rushers also. As for the U, they've been a really exciting team. I really like watching De'Aaron King play. The guy's completed 63.5% of his passes. He's thrown 22 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. He can also run the ball. He's averaging over 4 yards a carry, and he has 4 rushing touchdowns. You combine him with Cameron Harris, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch in terms of runners. If King decides to throw the ball, he has some options. Mike Harley is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the nation. He has 49 catches for 730 yards and 6 touchdowns. Brevin Jordan is one of the best tight ends in the nation. 30 catches for 480 yards and 5 touchdowns. He'll be a 3rd or 4th rounder in the NFL draft if he decides to declare. Mark Pope and D. Wiggins are also talented wide receivers. Defensively for the Hurricanes, it boils down to 3 guys. Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, and Jared Harrison Hunte. If I butchered any of those names, I'm sorry. But they're all talented players. Jalen has 8 sacks this year, Quincy has 4.5 sacks this year, and Jared has 3 sacks this year. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't talk about the Hurricane special teamers. Jose Borregales hasn't missed an extra point this year. He's 35 for 35. He's only missed 2 field goals. Some people say that he's the best kicker in the NFL draft. He's also a finalist for the Lou Groza Award, which goes to the nation's top kicker. And Lewis Headley, the punter, is a finalist for the Ray Guy Award, which goes to the best punter in the nation. All in all, I don't see how Oklahoma State wins this game. The absence of Chuba Hubbard is really going to set him back. Their inconsistency at quarterback is really going to set him back. Also, the game is in Orlando. You know Miami fans are going to go to that game. Fans are going to be allowed in. My buddy Mike is a fan of the Hurricanes. Mike, this is for you. I'm picking the U. Moving on now to the Alamo Bowl. Colorado versus Texas. I can define Colorado's team with just 3 players. Jarek Broussard, Carson Wells, and Nate Landman. I like Carl Dorrell, the Buffalo's head coach. He used to be Vanderbilt's offensive coordinator and Jets wide receivers coach. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he joined Eric Bieniemy on his staff. If and when Bieniemy gets a head coaching job in the NFL. And part of that is because, despite Colorado really only having 3 premium players, the Buffaloes went 4-1 this year. They were ranked once this year. Then they lost to Utah. Dorrell has done a great job with Colorado this year. His scheming is great. His game planning is great. He pushes all the right buttons. Like I said, the fact that he's doing this with just 3 premium players is really impressive. Broussard is the only guy who plays offense on Colorado. You can't trust the quarterback, Sam Neuer. You just can't. Is he a solid runner? Yes, but I'd rather they just give the ball to Broussard. The guy has 813 rushing yards this year. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry. Only 3 touchdowns, but that's because Neuer has 5. Defensively, Nate Landman has 4 sacks this year, and he's guaranteed to finish with that. You know how I know that? Because he's out for this game with an ankle injury. It's all on Carson Wells. I wanted to bring up Landman because he's part of the reason why the Buffaloes got here, but this game is going to come down to just 2 players. Jarek Broussard and Carson Wells. I don't care that the Longhorns are shorthanded on defense. They're going to win this game. Everyone's focusing on guys like Joseph Osai, Taquan Graham, Chris Brown, and Caden Stearns opting out. There's no question that those are big losses for the Longhorns. But they're still more talented than Colorado. Sam Ehlinger has had a really good season. He's completed 60% of his passes for 2,400 yards and 25 touchdowns. He's only thrown 5 interceptions. He has 8 rushing touchdowns. Him and Bijan Robinson are very capable of carrying the load for the Longhorns. Rashawn Johnson also may get some carries. If Ehlinger wants to throw it, look out for Joshua Moore and Jake Smith. No Brennan Eagles and no Tarek Black. I understand that the Longhorns are decimated. I get that. But they're still the more talented team. Sam Ehlinger is better than any Buffalo. That's just fact. Bijan Robinson is a really talented running back. The future's very bright for him as a freshman. I don't see how Colorado wins this game. It's in Texas. Hook 'em. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Valk talk. And the San Diego Padres aren't done making moves. Trading for Blake Snell wasn't enough. They went out and made 2 other huge moves yesterday. The first was signing Ha-Seong Kim out of South Korea to a 4-year deal worth $25 million. Kim was a very highly sought after international free agent. After the top guys who were free agents this year, Real Muto, Bauer, Springer, LeMahieu, there were some people saying that Kim was the next best free agent. This guy has dominated in the KBO. He started playing there when he was 18 years old. He's played 7 seasons in the KBO. He's 25. In his KBO career, he's hit .294 with 133 home runs and 575 RBIs. Last year, he hit .306 with 30 home runs and 109 RBIs for the Kiwoom Heroes. According to Joel Sherman of the New York Post, the Padres are going to play Kim at second base and move Jake Cronenworth to left field. He doesn't have a lot of experience at second base. He's only played 15 innings there in the KBO. But everyone raved about his defense at short. It wouldn't surprise me if he made the jump to second base seamlessly. He also doesn't strike out a lot. Last year, in 138 games, he only struck out 68 times. That's incredible. Keep in mind, he was 24 years old when he was doing that. There are players older than that in the majors that strike out more than double that. Great move by the Padres. The contract is very fair for him. It wouldn't surprise me if Kim turned into a 270, 280 hitter in the majors with about 20 home runs. He also has speed to burn, too. Expect him to get like 30 steals. Last year he had 23. It wouldn't surprise me if the Padres pushed the envelope with him a little bit more. Him and Tatis together, they're going to run roughshod on the base paths. The other piece of Padres news is them trading for Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini. In exchange for giving them up, the Cubs are getting Zach Davies, Reginald Preciado, Jason Santana, Owen Casey, and Ismael Mena. Firstly, let me just say that this deal is being mischaracterized. A lot of people are saying that this is a straight salary dump by the Cubs. The only reason the Cubs did this was to shed Darvish's remaining contract. He's set to make $59 million over the next 3 years. While that's a lot of money, I don't think this classifies as a straight salary dump. Could that have been some of the motivation? Yeah, but the Cubs just got a lot younger here, and they picked up some solid prospects. I saw people saying, look at the players the Padres gave up here. They're nobodies. You're never going to see these guys in the majors. They're not talking about Zach Davies because Davies has established himself as a good pitcher. But no, I think you could see Preciado, Santana, Casey, and Mena. Kyle Glazer of Baseball America said that Baseball America was gonna put those 4 guys in their list of the 20 best prospects that the Padres have. They go up to 30. They were going to put these 4 guys in their top 20. This isn't a straight salary dump by the Cubs. This is them getting younger while shedding salary. Is Zach Davies worse than Yu Darvish? The answer is yes, but it's not as lock, stock, and barrel as some people would make it out to be. I understand that the Cubs have been focused on shedding payroll this offseason. They got rid of Albert Almora, they got rid of Kyle Schwarber, they may trade Chris Bryant. But this isn't like the Blake Snell trade. The Cubs got a really solid return here. I don't think they hurt themselves that much for next year. Now on to the players in the deal itself. Darvish had a great year last year. He led the majors in wins with 8 because that's normal. He had a 2.01 ERA. He was the runner-up in NL Cy Young voting. Obviously, Trevor Bauer won it instead of him. In 2019, Darvish went 6-8 with a 3.98 ERA. He's a really good pitcher. Is he great? No. He'll never be what he was with the Rangers again, but you could do a lot worse than him as your third starter. Is he overpaid? Yes, but he's still a really good pitcher. Caratini is a solid catcher. Nothing great, nothing terrible. He's never played in more than 100 games in a season. The Padres are going to have him as their starting catcher next year. Austin Hedges and Austin Nola aren't going to get the job done. It'll be interesting to see what Caratini does as the full-time catcher. It wouldn't surprise me if he hit 250, 10 homers, 50 to 60 ribbies. He's not a terrible player. He's just a big question mark since he's never been a starting catcher before. Zach Davies is one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball. Last year he went 7-4 with a 2.73 ERA. In 2019 he went 10-7 with a 3.55 ERA. Sabermetricians don't like him because he doesn't strike a lot of people out. He's never had more than 135 strikeouts in a season. His FIP and WHIP aren't the greatest, which I couldn't care any less about. Don't trust these sabermetricians. Zach Davies is a really good pitcher. He's not as good as Darvish, but there's not a massive talent gap there. Preciado is a very raw player. He's 17 years old, but he hasn't played professionally. Can he fail? Absolutely. But he has the tools that scouts dream of. He's 6'4", 185 pounds. He's a switch hitter, really good swing. As he gets older, you'll see his power start to develop. Could Preciado bust? Absolutely. But he has the tools necessary to succeed in the bigs. Mena is in the same vein as Preciado. 18 years old, hasn't played professionally yet. But again, the tools that scouts dream of. 6'3", 185 pounds, blazing speed, really good defender, covers a lot of ground in center field. Best case scenario for him is Aaron Hicks. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people in this league who would take Aaron Hicks on their team in a minute. While I'm not as crazy about him as some people, the guy has incredible defense. If Mena can turn into that, the Cubs have something. As for Santana and Casey, I don't know too much about them personally. I know that Santana was going to be the 18th best prospect in the Padres system, according to Baseball America, and Casey was going to be the 20th best. That's good enough for me to say that these guys are more than organizational depth. They do have solid major league futures. When they play professionally, I'm going to be interested in learning more about them. I'm going to key in on them. Again, this isn't a straight salary dump for the Cubs. Yes, that may have been the primary motivation behind it, but it's more than that. They got some really good players. Davies will fill in for Darvish seamlessly. Oh my God, the Cubs need a new backup catcher. You can find backup catchers. They also got 4 pretty exciting young prospects. While this trade does make sense for the Cubs, it makes more sense for the Padres. They're making a legitimate run at a World Series. I'm not going to go as far as saying that they're definitely going to win it, but I'll tell you, they're going to be a really tough out in October. It wouldn't surprise me if they went on a deep run. The Padres do win this trade by a 60-40 edge. And let me tell you, AJ Preller is every fan's dream as a general manager. The guy's insanely aggressive. He always looks to improve his roster. I love AJ Preller. I think he's one of the best general managers in not just baseball, but in all of sports. Tomorrow's show is going to be posted at high noon. There's going to be a lot of college football to break down, along with anything else that breaks in the sports world. No show Thursday, no show Friday. Jets recap on Sunday. Brooklyn Nets the morning of January 4th. Regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show that afternoon. Probably a big Black Monday recap along with some college football. In the evening, New York Jets off-season preview. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that good mothers are underrated just like good defense.